My true story from New York. I inherited $5.20 MIM after my husband passed. Luckily, I told no one. Because, a week after my son's wedding, my deal came with a notary and blank papers to sign. She thought I was poor. I just smiled. I let her think that. Why is she still here? She's draining us like a tick. Just shove her in a home already, or better, get her committed. I stood frozen in the hallway, hands still damp from the towel I had just hung. They did not know I was listening. They never did. The words hit me harder than the cold tiles beneath my feet. I should have walked away, should have let it pass like all the other insults I had endured quietly, but this one rooted itself inside me, deep and pulsing. My name is Rebecca. I am 78 years old, a widow, a mother, and once upon a time a wife who cooked 3 meals a day and paid every bill on time. I raised a son named Thomas, who used to fall asleep on my chest while I hummed old jazz records. He used to bring me dandelions from the schoolyard. Now he would not even bring me a glass of water unless she told him to. She, Lily, my daughter-in-law. After my husband Harold passed away, the silence of the house became unbearable. We had been married for 48 years. Cancer took him swiftly and mercilessly. I stayed in that house for 6 more months, dusting his slippers, cooking his favorite soup, pouring 2 cups of tea out of habit. Then one day Thomas came by and said, "Mom, you should not be alone. Why don't you come live with us for a while?" It sounded like love at the time. Lily welcomed me with a smile so wide it made my chest ache. "Of course, Rebecca," she said, holding both my hands like I was a fragile porcelain doll. "We'd love to have you here." She made me peppermint tea and brought out an extra pillow from my back. She even put up a photo of Harold on the living room shelf. I remember crying that night, thinking how lucky I was that my son had married such a thoughtful woman. But kindness like that does not last when it is rehearsed. At first, it was little things. She moved my tea canisters from the front row in the cabinet to the top shelf. "We're organizing," she smiled. Then she asked if I could vacuum in the afternoons while they worked, and of course I did. I folded their laundry too, because Lily said the maid service was too expensive. I made dinner each night. Thomas said thank you sometimes he did not. Then one morning I tried to open the fridge, and it beeped. It had a child lock code. Lily laughed and said, "Oh no, silly thing, we had to keep it secure because of food tracking, diet stuff." She said it so casually, but I saw her glance at Thomas, and he looked down at his phone, pretending not to notice. I started keeping crackers in my bedroom drawer. There were days when the tea tasted strange. Once, I woke up groggy on the couch, with no memory of how I got there, my mouth dry, my head spinning. I asked Lily what had happened, and she said, "Oh, you must have dozed off. You're getting old, Rebecca. It's normal." Her voice was soft, almost pitying, but her eyes were sharp, calculating. I started pouring my own tea after that. The house changed around me, slowly. My old armchair disappeared. "We sold it on Facebook Marketplace," Lily said. It didn't match the aesthetic. Harold's photo vanished from the shelf. My family cookbook? Lost during spring cleaning. They never asked me what I wanted to keep. My name was no longer mentioned during dinner conversations. I had become the background hum of an appliance, something noticed only when broken or in the way. Still, I stayed silent. I told myself this was just transition. Adjustment. Grief makes you pliable, patient, foolish. But that morning, when I heard her say those words, "She's draining us like a tick," something snapped. I remember the way she said it, bored and annoyed, as if I were an ugly stain on their living room rug. I peeked around the corner, careful not to make a sound. Lily sat at the dining table, manicured fingers flipping through a glossy magazine. Thomas stood nearby, awkward and half-involved, as always. "I'm serious, Thomas," she continued, tapping her nail against her mug. "Your mother is not contributing anything. She sleeps, eats, and wanders around like a damn ghost. I didn't sign up for elder care. This is our house, our life. We want kids, we need space. We can't do that with her lurking around." Thomas sighed, but he did not disagree. "She'll say no," he mumbled. "She won't," Lily said. "She's too tired to fight. We just need a doctor's note or something. She's already halfway there. You saw how confused she was last week." I was not confused. I had been awake for 36 hours straight because the sleeping pills she had slipped into my drink had left me groggy and anxious, but I had cleaned their bathroom anyway. We get her evaluated, Lily went on, and then, if the results are promising, we proceed, conservatorship or whatever. At her age, it'll fly through. Thomas ran a hand through his thinning hair. I don't know, Lily. That's still... My mom. She leaned in close, her voice low but slicing. She's not your mom anymore. She's a liability. Look at her. She talks to herself, forgets things, barely moves. She's halfway to the grave, and I'm not waiting till she drags us down with her. That was when I backed away, my heart pounding. I walked quietly back to the guest room and sat on the edge of the bed, hands trembling, mind spinning. They wanted me gone. No, they wanted me declared mentally unfit. They wanted me signed away like some abandoned piece of furniture so they could take control. Of what, I wondered? What did they think I had? They thought I was poor? Good. Let them think that. They never asked what Harold left behind, never wondered why I never cashed the joint account, never saw the locked drawer in my nightstand where I kept his last will and testament, the one that named me sole beneficiary of $5,200,000, 0 cents in investments and real estate quietly sold off the year before he passed. They did not know. They never asked. And now they had made a fatal mistake. They thought I was alone, but I was not. I still had one thing left that they did not. Memory. And I remembered every word she said when she thought I was too old to matter. I remembered, and I would not forget. In the early days of moving in with them, I tried to keep myself useful. I cooked dinner every night, folded the laundry before they got home, and made sure the house was clean and quiet. I dusted the shelves, scrubbed the bathtub, and even organized their pantry by color. It was not pride that drove me, it was survival. If I could be helpful, if I could blend into the wallpaper, maybe they would let me stay in peace. No one knew the house belonged to me. After Harold died, everything was transferred into my name, including the deed to the house Thomas now lived in. We had bought it when he started college, thinking it might be an investment for his future. But we never told him. Harold and I agreed that some things should be earned, not handed over like candy on Halloween. So, when Thomas and Lily moved in after their wedding, we let them believe it was a generous rental from an anonymous benefactor. I paid the taxes, the maintenance fees, even the water bill, all through a trust. No one asked questions. No one said thank you either. Lily liked to think of herself as the queen of the house. She had a taste for pastel furniture and Pinterest-style renovations. I often came home to find wallpapers stripped, cabinets replaced, walls painted in shades of beige I could not name. You smell like mothballs and regret, she told me one morning as I stood in the hallway, clutching a basket of clean towels. I said nothing, just turned back toward the laundry room. She thrived on humiliation. It was in the way she'd loudly correct me when guests were over. No, Rebecca, we use the espresso machine now, not that drip thing. Or the way she'd talk about me like I was not even in the room. At dinner one evening, with 2 of her friends sitting around the table, she said, I swear, having her around is like living with a museum exhibit. Everything smells like the past, and it never shuts up. Her friends laughed. Thomas looked down at his plate and stabbed at his peas. He never spoke up, never defended me. Not once. You better die before Christmas, she said one afternoon while reorganizing the living room. We're redecorating. I was standing nearby, dusting the windowsills. She said it so casually, like she was talking about replacing a throw pillow. I went to my room that night and cried. Not loud enough for them to hear, of course. Just quiet tears into the same pillow I had used for 30 years. The one Harold gave me when we took our first trip to Cape Cod. The next morning, I began my quiet war. I did not yell. I did not confront. I simply started writing. Every word she said, I logged in a little notebook I hid beneath the drawer liner in my nightstand. December 3, she left crumbs on the counter. I should shove those crackers down her throat. December 10, Thomas, if you don't talk to her, I will, and I won't be nice this time. December 17, she wears that same sweater every damn day. I swear, it smells like death. Words are weapons, and Lily had no idea I was collecting hers like bullets. But words alone would not be enough. I needed proof. So I took one of Harold's old picture frames, a heavy oak one with a floral border, and hollowed out the back just enough to place a mini voice recorder inside. I positioned it on the mantel in the living room, angled just so. Each night, while they slept, I downloaded the day's audio to a flash drive I kept tucked in the lining of my purse. I gave it a label they would never check. Church Hymns 19801987. For weeks I kept recording. I captured her telling Thomas I was faking my forgetfulness, that I was exaggerating my age. I captured the way she scoffed when I asked for help carrying groceries, the way she laughed when I mispronounced the name of her hair serum, the way she hissed, "She's a parasite," when she thought no one was listening. But I was always listening, and I was learning something important. Lily was not just cruel, she was calculating. She had a way of turning everything into evidence against me. If I dropped a glass, it became another sign of decline. If I forgot to put the milk back in the fridge, it was dementia, clearly. She kept a private folder on her computer called Rebecca Notes. I saw it once, briefly, when she left the screen unlocked. It listed every mistake I had made in the house since August. She was building a case against me. Slowly, meticulously. It terrified me. But it also woke something inside me I had not felt since Harold died. A fierce, quiet strength. I was not crazy. I was not weak. And I was done pretending not to notice. Dinner was quiet that night. Too quiet. I had made roasted chicken with rosemary, mashed potatoes, and a green bean salad the way Thomas used to like it, with a hint of lemon zest. No one said thank you. No one said anything at all until Lily cleared her throat and pushed back her chair with that pointed little smile she wore when she was about to perform. She reached behind her and retrieved a stack of neatly clipped papers, sealed in a bright blue folder. She walked over to me and set it down beside my plate, right on the cloth napkin I had ironed that morning. "Let the maid sign the papers," she said, loud and clear, looking at Thomas, not me. "She doesn't even know what they say." I looked down at the folder. Thomas looked at his glass. There was a long pause. I reached for my reading glasses, even though I did not need them for large print anymore, but I wanted the delay. I needed a moment to steady the tremble in my hand. My heart was thudding against my ribs like a war drum. Thomas did not say a word. Not a whisper of protest, just kept staring into his drink like the answer might be at the bottom. I opened the folder slowly, deliberately, page after page of legal language, dense, small font paragraphs, words like durable power of attorney, revocation rights, and asset transfer. It was dressed up like estate planning, but I had seen enough paperwork in my lifetime to know this was no mere housekeeping. They were trying to take control of everything. Lily poured herself a glass of wine, swirled it, and took a delicate sip like she was watching a scene from a play she had directed herself. "It's just financial housekeeping," she said lightly, as if I had asked. "Standard stuff. We're just organizing things so everyone's protected in case anything happens." She said the word happens with such a sugary tone I nearly gagged, as if the thing that might happen was not already being planned with precision behind my back. I nodded slowly. I lifted the first page again and made a show of squinting. "I'm not sure I understand this part here," I said, pointing to a paragraph near the bottom. "What does this word mean? Irrevocable?" Lily laughed, not kindly. "It just means it makes things easier down the line. It's legal talk, nothing to worry about." I turned to Thomas. "Do you know what's in this?" He finally looked up, eyes glassy. "It's fine, Mom. It's just to help us help you, so you don't have to worry about bills or anything." I smiled faintly and turned another page. My hands were shaking just enough to make it believable. "Do I need a lawyer to look at this?" Lily stiffened. "That's not necessary. We already checked with someone. It's all clean. We're just simplifying things." I gave a weak little laugh. "Well, I suppose that makes sense. I'm not as sharp as I used to be." That lie slipped from my lips like silk. They bought it without blinking. She thought I would sign that night, that I would shuffle over to the pen and give away what little they believed I had. But instead, I flipped the pages carefully, nodding at each one, buying time. I asked her to explain 3 more clauses I pretended not to understand. I looked for water. I asked if it was too late to take my evening medication. All of it was stalling, and inside me something dark and fierce began to take shape. They thought I was too slow, too stupid, too old to see what they were doing. But I was none of those things. I was just quiet. And quiet does not mean blind. That night, I stayed up in my room, staring at the ceiling, the words of the documents replaying in my head. They wanted full financial control. If I signed that packet, they could sell the house, drain the accounts, even move me into a care facility without my consent. I pulled out my journal and jotted down the date, the time, what Lily had said, word for word. Then I retrieved the flash drive from its hiding place and backed up that night's audio from the frame recorder. Her voice came through clearly. She doesn't even know what they say. They wanted me to disappear without a fight. But I had no intention of vanishing quietly. I began my own plan that night, as I sat alone in my room, listening to their muffled laughter downstairs. Let them think the maid could not read. Let them think the old woman would just sign. It started with a smile, as most of Lily's traps did. "We scheduled a quick checkup for you, Rebecca," she said one morning over dry toast and silent tension. "Just to monitor your blood pressure and general health. You know, at your age, it's important to stay ahead of things." She made it sound so reasonable, so caring, like I had been the one to ask. Thomas nodded along, barely looking at me. "It's just routine, Mom. Lily's friend recommended a clinic. They're really good with senior care." I knew better than to protest. Resistance only fed her performance. I nodded, smiled back, and sipped my tea, the one I made myself now, always. I had stopped letting Lily serve me anything weeks ago. The appointment was set for Friday afternoon. Lily drove me there herself. She wore a beige sweater and oversized sunglasses, her voice high and falsely cheerful the entire ride. "This place is so great," she said, turning into a quiet medical complex tucked behind a row of upscale condominiums. "Dr. Myers is very gentle. You'll love her." She parked the car and came around to open my door like I was some honored guest, not a prisoner being walked into her own ambush. Inside, the receptionist greeted us with a bright smile and a clipboard. I noticed there were no charts on the walls about heart health or cholesterol, no posters about blood pressure or arthritis. Instead, everything read like a pamphlet for cognitive decline, understanding early dementia, how to prepare for memory loss, when to consider conservatorship. I glanced at Lily. She was texting. A woman in her 40s called my name. Dr. Myers. She had soft curls and clinical eyes. Her handshake was firm but impersonal. We went into a plain white room with 2 chairs, a small desk, and a digital recorder in plain view. There was no exam table, no stethoscope, no medical instruments at all. "I understand you've been experiencing some memory trouble," she said after I sat down. I blinked. "No, I've been quite sharp lately. I read a novel just last week." Dr. Myers smiled gently, as if I had said something precious and irrelevant. "We just want to do a few short evaluations, nothing stressful." She started with a memory test. Names, numbers, short sequences. Then came orientation, what day it was, who the president was, what city we were in. I answered everything correctly. Then came abstraction. If you had to explain the phrase, "Don't cry over spilled milk," what would you say it means? I answered clearly, "It means there's no point in mourning what's already done." She wrote something down without looking up. Another question. If a train is moving west at 60 miles per hour and a car is moving east at 40, how far apart are they after 30 minutes? I laughed. "I'm not applying to NASA, am I?" She didn't laugh. She just kept writing. The questions got stranger. Do you ever hear voices when no one is around? Do you often feel like people are watching you? Have you ever wanted to hurt yourself or others? I answered calmly, firmly, truthfully. No. To all. But she kept writing. When we finished, she thanked me for my time and asked me to wait outside. Lily was sitting in the car, sunglasses still on, scrolling her phone. "How'd it go?" she asked without looking up. "Fine," I said, staring straight ahead. The following week, a letter arrived. It was addressed to me, but Lily opened it. She always did. She read it in the kitchen, standing near the coffee maker. I was washing dishes. "Well," she said, almost singing, "looks like they found something after all." She handed it to me like a dirty tissue. I dried my hands and took it. It was from a state-affiliated clinic. Formal, sterile. Subject: Behavioral and Cognitive Assessment Outcome. Recommendation for further evaluation and long-term care consideration. I kept reading, my throat tightening. Diagnosis: mild cognitive impairment with behavioral irregularities. Recommendation: monitoring and preparation for possible conservatorship or psychiatric evaluation for long-term placement. I folded the letter slowly, neatly, looked up. Thomas stood in the hallway, watching. He did not say a word. Lily just smiled and walked away, humming to herself. They were doing it. They were laying the groundwork to have me declared legally incompetent so they could take control of the house, the accounts, every dollar they thought I was hiding. They believed that once I was out of the way, locked in some white-walled facility, the rest would be easy. They were wrong. Because I had recorded every conversation, I had backed up every file, I had scanned that letter and added it to my growing archive of evidence. This was not just a plan, it was a crime. And I was not going to let them finish it. The day after that letter arrived, I made a call, not from the house, of course. I walked 3 blocks down to the public library, signed in on one of the old landline booths they'd kept for emergencies, and dialed the number from memory. Alan Green had been Harold's attorney for over 30 years. He was the one who handled the quiet sale of our investment properties, the silent transfer of our portfolios, and the will that named me sole beneficiary to everything Harold had built, all $5,200,000, 0 cents of it. Harold trusted no one with money, not even Thomas. But Alan knew every line of our story. "Rebecca," he said when he picked up, his voice like smooth gravel, "I've been waiting on your call." We met that Friday in a quiet downtown office nestled between a dentist and a bakery. He poured me chamomile tea and shut the blinds before we spoke. I pulled out the USB flash drive, the small black notebook, and a stack of printed emails, letters, and copies of that so-called medical report. Then I pulled the recorder from my coat pocket. He listened. For nearly 2 hours, his eyes grew colder with every clip. Lily's voice rang out, again and again. "She's a parasite. She doesn't even know what she's signing. Just get her committed." When it ended, Alan exhaled through his nose. "You've been patient," he said. "Too patient. This is premeditated elder abuse, Rebecca. This is criminal." I nodded. "She's trying to make me disappear." "No," he corrected. "She's trying to make you disappear legally. She wants power of attorney. Once she gets that, she can sell your house, close your accounts, and place you wherever she wants, and there's not a damn thing anyone could do after the fact." I sipped my tea. "I need this stopped, quietly but permanently." He leaned back. "I'll start with background checks. She's slippery, but if she's done this before, we'll know." 2 weeks later, Alan called me back. He did not say hello. Instead, he said, "Her real name isn't even Lily." My spine straightened. I held my breath. "Her legal name is Celia Howard. Lily is one of 5 aliases she's used in the last 10 years. She's been married 3 times before, that we could confirm. 2 of the husbands were more than 30 years older than her. Both died within 1 year of the wedding. Causes of death? Natural causes," he said grimly. "One had a heart attack, the other fell down a flight of stairs." "And insurance?" "Both cases, the widows collected substantial life insurance payouts within 90 days, nearly $500,000 each." I put the phone down and closed my eyes. I was not just living with a manipulative daughter-in-law, I was living with a professional predator. Alan continued, "She's under quiet investigation in New Jersey, but there was never enough evidence to convict. It looks like she's changed locations every 18 to 24 months, marrying, collecting, then disappearing." "And my son?" I asked softly. Alan paused. "He's not innocent. He's not a mastermind, but he knows. At least some of it. There's a paper trail. Account access changes, beneficiary requests. There's no way he doesn't suspect something." My chest ached, but I did not cry. Not anymore. I had cried the day Harold died. I had cried the day Thomas stopped calling me Mom and started calling me Rebecca, like a stranger. But now, I was out of tears. Now, I was awake. "They think I'm weak," I said. "They're counting on it," Alan replied. I looked out his office window, into the gray New York sky, and I felt something settle in me. Not anger, not grief. Something sharper, something old and unbreakable. "They won't see what's coming," I said. Alan smiled. "Let's make sure they don't." I spent the next few weeks pretending to fade. I moved slower, forgot things on purpose. I left the fridge open once, accidentally, put salt in the sugar jar, and started asking the same question twice. Lily loved it. She was practically glowing with delight. "She's getting worse," she whispered one night, knowing I could hear her. "I told you. We're doing the right thing." Thomas nodded, his eyes flickering toward me, then away. He looked like a boy who had dropped his toy in traffic and was too scared to run after it. They thought I was unraveling, but I was preparing. The papers they had given me the first time, I still had them, tucked away in a file, scanned and sent to Alan. He drew up his own version. It looked identical on the surface, same layout, same cover sheet. But what I signed would not be the death of my freedom. It would be the beginning of their undoing. The real documents were affidavits, signed under penalty of perjury, reporting financial fraud, attempted elder coercion, identity manipulation, and conspiracy to commit abuse of a vulnerable adult. Alan had arranged for a certified notary to play a role in the performance. I had one job: act the fool and sign. The day arrived like a shadow. Lily woke me early. She was wearing a pearl white blouse and beige pants, like she was going to brunch at a country club. Her smile was syrupy, her hands annoyingly gentle as she helped me into a fresh cardigan. "Today's going to be a good day," she cooed. "We're just wrapping up some paperwork. After this, you won't have to worry about anything ever again." Thomas sat at the kitchen table, silent, pale. The notary, a polite young man named Jacob, arrived promptly at 9 a.m. He sat up at the dining table and unzipped a small case with a formal stamp, clipboard, and legal pad. Lily laid out the papers like a hostess preparing hors d'oeuvres. "This is the final version," she said, sliding them in front of me. "Just a few signatures and initials." I blinked slowly, adjusting my glasses. "What's this part about again?" She leaned in. "It just says you're giving us permission to help manage the house and accounts. You know, help you with your bills, your medications. It's a blessing, really." Jacob cleared his throat and looked at me. "Mrs. Reynolds, are you signing these documents of your own free will?" I nodded. "Do you understand what these documents entail?" I smiled faintly. "Yes, very clearly." Lily beamed. Thomas still did not speak. My hands trembled, not from fear, but timing. I picked up the pen slowly, turned to the last page, and signed, "Rebecca Ann Reynolds," just as Alan told me to. Jacob stamped the paper. "That's it," Lily said. "We're done." She turned to Thomas, her voice giddy with relief. "We're done." I stood up. "I'll be in my room. I need to rest." And I walked away, slow and deliberate, my back straight, my heart calm. 3 hours later, Alan filed everything, not to probate court, but directly to the Attorney General's Office of Elder Affairs and the Federal Division of Financial Crimes. He submitted all recordings, photographs, transcripts, property records, Lily's background report, marriage certificates under other names, death records of her previous husbands, and the notary-signed affidavit from me detailing the full extent of the fraud. We did not need to shout. We had everything. I was never the fool in this story. I was just quiet, until it was time not to be. Exactly 1 week after I signed the papers, my papers, the storm broke. Lily had dressed in pale pink that day. Her hair was curled into tight, cheerful spirals, her lips painted a soft coral. She looked like a woman who had never raised her voice or slammed a door, a woman whose children brought her flowers, even if she had none. The school's annual Parent Association meeting was being held in a modest gymnasium not far from our neighborhood. Lily had been invited to speak. A short 5-minute slot before the voting for Mother of the Year, an award given by the district to recognize excellence in parenting and community service. I suppose she thought her victory lap was about to begin. Thomas drove her there. He was wearing a navy blazer and a lost expression. I watched them from across the street, parked in the back of Alan's sedan, dressed in an old trench coat and wide-brimmed hat. No one noticed me. No one ever did when I did not want them to. Inside the gymnasium, folding chairs had been arranged in neat rows. A makeshift stage had been set up. PTA mothers fussed with banners and paper name tags. Lily took the microphone. She smiled to the audience like a queen on Easter morning. And then the doors opened. 2 men in dark suits entered first. Behind them, uniformed officers. The room went still. Gasps rose. A chair screeched backward. One mother clutched her pearls like something from a movie. Lily Howard, the taller agent said, you are under arrest for identity fraud, conspiracy to commit elder abuse, attempted financial theft, and interstate insurance fraud. Lily blinked. Once. Twice. Then the color drained from her face. I don't understand, she stammered, her voice cracking. There must be a mistake. Thomas stood beside her, motionless. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. The agents moved forward, read her rights, and placed her wrists in cuffs. The badge flashed. Cameras clicked. Someone's phone recorded it all. She did not look elegant anymore. Outside, the press had already begun to gather. Alan had sent anonymous tips to several local outlets, just enough to ensure the story would not disappear quietly, just like she had hoped I would. I stood behind the caution tape, silent. She was led out the front door, and for one suspended moment, our eyes met. She froze. Her jaw tightened. I didn't smile. I didn't wave. I just looked at her. The same way she used to look at me when I stood too long in the kitchen or took up too much space in the living room. Except now the space was all mine. She broke eye contact first. Thomas turned next. He saw me. He took a step forward, just one, and then stopped. We stared at each other for several long seconds, mother and son, the chasm between us wider than the sirens screaming down the block. He opened his mouth. I turned and walked away. 1 week after the arrest, I sealed a plain white envelope, wrote Thomas's name in careful cursive across the front, and dropped it in the mailbox by the corner cafe. No return address. Just the truth. Inside was a single sheet of paper and a crisp $1 bill. The paper bore my signature, notarized, final, and irrefutable. It revoked his status as heir, revoked his right to make decisions on my behalf, revoked everything he thought he would quietly inherit while standing beside a woman like Lily. For your silence, I wrote above the bill. This is all you get. I did not expect a reply. But 3 days later, there was a knock at my door. I let it ring twice before opening. Thomas stood there in the same blazer he wore to the PTA meeting, wrinkled now, stained with something he had probably spilled on the drive over. His hair was uncombed, his eyes swollen. He looked like a boy again, one who had lost his way and finally realized the world would not wait for him to catch up. He held the envelope in his hand. "Mom," he whispered. "Please." I said nothing. He stepped forward. I didn't know it was this bad. I didn't know what she was really capable of. I thought we were just helping you. She said you were sick. That you were slipping. I leaned against the doorframe. She said we were just trying to protect you, he went on. That we were doing the right thing, his voice cracked. And I believed her. I looked at him then. Not as my son. Not as the boy who used to draw robots on my grocery lists or sleep with his head on my shoulder during long drives. I looked at him as the man he had become, passive, willfully blind, and comfortable with cruelty, so long as it came with clean linens and a silent mother. You believed her because it was easier than believing me, I said. Because I didn't shout. Because I didn't beg. I was scared, he whispered. She said if we didn't do it, she'd leave, and I thought I'd lose everything. You lost more than you think, I said. He took another step. Then he dropped to his knees. It was not dramatic. There were no howls or fist-pounding, just a quiet collapse, like something inside him had finally given up. "Please," he said. "Please don't do this. You're all I have left." I stood there for a long moment. Then I stepped back and closed the door. I did not slam it. I did not lock it. I just let it rest quietly in the frame, the way silence always does. Steady, final, and more honest than any apology ever could be. That night, I packed. 2 suitcases, 1 carry-on, and a passport I had not touched in 15 years. Alan had already arranged everything: flights, housing, transfers. He had offered to come with me, but I declined. I did not need company. I needed clarity. The morning air was cool as I stood on the curb and waited for the car. The city moved around me like it always had, loud, fast, and uninterested, but I felt still inside, rooted, calm. I did not leave a note. I did not say goodbye. At the airport, I handed over my ticket to a woman who smiled politely, not knowing the weight of what I carried in my chest. The flight was long, smooth. I did not sleep. When the plane landed in Venice, the light was gold. It fell across the canal like a secret finally told. I stepped out of the terminal, breathed in the sharp scent of salt and old stone, and smiled. Not the smile I used to give when pretending everything was fine, a real one, the kind that lives in the back of your chest until the day you finally remember who you are. I took a water taxi to a small inn near the Rialto Bridge. My room was simple: white sheets, arched windows, a tiny balcony overlooking the canal. That evening, I sat out there with a glass of wine and watched the sky go from tangerine to lavender. No one asked me to cook. No one asked me to sign anything. No one told me I smelled like mothballs and regret. I was free. Truly free. I thought about Harold then, how he used to joke about retiring in Italy. One day, he'd say, when we're too old to matter, we'll go where no one knows us and live like emperors in disguise. I whispered into the wind, "We made it, love." I made it. The next morning I went to the open-air market and bought myself a bouquet of sunflowers. I placed them in a vase on the windowsill and let them bathe in the light. I wrote a single line in my journal. I used to be the maid no one needed. Now, I am the mistress of my own life, and I meant every word. Thank you for listening to my story. If it moved you, if it reminded you of a voice that was silenced for too long, maybe your mother's, your grandmother's, or even your own, then you understand why I had to tell it. Because sometimes, the quietest woman in the room holds the loudest truth. And sometimes, a maid is actually the one who owns the house. This is not just my story. It's the story of every woman who was underestimated, dismissed, or told to stay quiet, and who chose, instead, to remember. If you want to hear more stories like mine, true stories of betrayal, resilience, and silent revenge, then please subscribe to Grandma True Stories. Here, the forgotten are finally heard. And remember, revenge has no expiration date. Wisdom doesn't shout, it remembers. And when a grandma speaks, the world finally listens. Subscribe now and never miss a truth the world tried to bury.